Okay, well, I'm going to drag you all down to the primary school level. That's the level of my knowledge about GM issues and stuff. There's not a lot I need to say. I'm here as a member of Biofuel Watch, and Biofuel Watch are very concerned about GM applications in the field of energy, particularly GM trees. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk, well, not a lot of the stuff, because I'm not going to talk for very long, because a lot of the concerns around breeding crops for energy are in fact the same issues that concern breeding crops for food. And also a lot of the concerns about breeding GM crops for energy are in fact just magnifications of the problems we have already with breeding monoculture plantations of cash crops and energy crops. GM just in most cases exacerbates those problems, although you have the additional problems then of containment and contamination, which can be more dangerous because cash energy crops don't require the same control and strictures as foodstuffs that we eat. So they're considered to be less dangerous in the environment, but of course that's not the case. I was reading earlier in the week about pollen transportation, and they've now actually found pollen at 10,000 meters below sea level. Sorry, 10,000 feet below sea level. So although it can cross miles, it actually gets that far into I think this was pine pollen that was found in the deep ocean. Genetically modified energy crops can affect subaquatic species. Similarly, in the energy world, they're talking about developing algal raffinations and GMOs as third and fourth generation bioenergy crops and synthetic biology. Whereas it might be a laboratory that can be used to enhance developments in areas that are more restrictive, for the reasons I mentioned before, it's not likely to become a big marketplace product, because the energy inputs are huge, and the results are minuscule, and certainly have no prospect of becoming major commercial fuel products in the near future. In fact, in terms of algal biofuels, they also talk about biochemical industry rather than just the bioenergy industry, and you're more likely to get a miracle age-reducing face cream than you are a usable energy product from the so-called research into energy genetics. But there's a good reason for this in terms of industry. The returns are not important. What's important is that they can have a big television advertising campaign, and it can be on the underground saying that BP are biofueling the future. That keeps the share price up. That makes people continue investing in BP, and Shell and BP can continue to take in subsidies, because the subsidies are given out for research into renewable energies. And that sustains our lifestyle. It encourages us that we can continue to burn energy at the rates at which we do, because BP and Shell are looking after how we're going to solve the carbon intensity problem. So it has very strong values for the company, even if it produces nothing of value in production terms. It also is argued that actually it was interesting that Jim mentioned the genetic apple trees from 20 years ago. Because when we mention genetically engineered trees, the first response is impossible. You could genetically modify a gigantic tree, and they don't believe it. They believe that genetic modification can only happen at these micro levels and stuff. But China has probably got about 45,000 hectares of genetically modified trees.
Have you lost your gloves?
What are they modified for?
They're modified for resistance to cold temperatures. They're modified for speeded up growth, and they're modified for fungal and insect resistance. They're
Increased lignin?
increased lignin, and in the use process, that they will burn faster, that they will produce more residue and less gas, less dispersal of the carbon, containing it in the fuel product. So there's a huge publicity side to the values, and they say that they can reduce carbon because they can grow faster. Some they can get species of tree that will grow faster, pine tree, etc., etc. And these species that grow faster absorb a heck of a lot more water than the other trees. Also, they're more likely to be softwoods and succulents like eucalyptus and pine, which are already very demanding on things like the water table and
They don't burn as well.
pardon?
They don't burn as well, they're not as effective.
Well, that's true. The industry wants hardwood, and in fact, I was at a conference in the States recently, and one of the things that was really surprising to me there. This is slightly, it's not related, but just that. In terms of faster growing, therefore we need less space, less land use, and less supporting things like insecticides or water. The market for paper pulp has doubled in the last few years. Even though, sorry, not paper pulp, for pulp. Even though America no longer produces its own paper pulp. And what it's producing is the stuff, the soft, fluffy stuff inside baby diapers, disposable baby diapers. And that is taking off, and it's doubled the market in softwoods. Hardwoods, funnily enough, have also escalated. But they're being mostly used for in the USA because they're not burning wood in the USA, they're burning it in Europe, which is even more ridiculous because of the carbon emissions in transporting it across the bloody Pacific Ocean. It's ridiculous. But the major use for hardwoods in the USA at the moment, and the cause of an expansion in hardwood timber industry, is for planking at hard to access fracking sites. So please buy washable nappies and campaign against that fracking to save our trees, as well as all the other terrible things that are happening in the fracking industry. I think I'll leave it at that, so that Helena can get on with what she's got to say. Also, I'd just like to say I'm pretty lacking in knowledge on this issue, but Biofuel Watch, on the other hand, I'm misrepresenting them, because we are very concerned about this, and we have two members in the USA, Rachel Smolker and Keith Brenner, who have written great papers. Our co-director in Edinburgh, Alma Ernstein, has also written several papers on GMOs for bioenergy. It's a big issue at the moment. My concerns are more about campaigning on the ground against the massive burning of trees in replacement of coal, and I've not really dealt much with this issue. But I would like to finish by saying that there is a huge campaign to stop GE trees. GE trees have been given approval in Brazil in 2015, and as far as we know, there are plantations on the ground, fields on the ground of GE trees in Brazil. Now, what has come to the attention of scientists in relation to the wildfires is that GE trees are probably highly susceptible to great conflagration in wildfire situations.
Into
Um,
what, sorry?
In wildfire
What did you say just
susceptible
before?
to-
conflagration.
They're burning.
What is that?
In Portugal and in Chile, imported eucalyptus species have been identified as major factors in the scale of the wildfires that occurred there. And scientists have said that we're just blessed that so far the wildfires that have occurred in the Amazon have not reached the GM eucalyptus plantations there, because that could become a massive destruction of the Amazon forest.
Sorry, that's not talking GM. That's just.
That is
one fact.
GM, yes.
Oh, it is GM.
Yeah. Brazil and China and what's the other country I'd mentioned it? Oh, well, Brazil and China have approved field tests for GM trees. The USA is currently debating it, and so Stop GE Trees, the campaign, please look it up online, sign the petitions, because if we can stop it in the USA, it'll be a big contribution to the cause.